Thanks, Carol. It's great to have the opportunity to speak today. I spoke to Carol several years ago when we were first starting to experiment with in-house crowdsourcing. So my talk will be really about applications about in-house crowdsourcing and expertise-based tasks. My name is Maja Vukovic. I'm a research staff member at TJ Watson Lab, a few dozens of miles up north from here at Yorktown Heights. Just a little bit of an introduction about our research organization before I get into the details of the talk. Basically, IBM Research is probably, some of you have heard about Watson and Jeopardy. It's a world's largest industrial research organization with about 12 labs worldwide in 10 countries and 3,000 researchers working on different areas ranging from big data analytics to natural resources. So I will talk today about this very specific use case of in-house crowdsourcing, how we have used it to uncover the knowledge, and I'm talking here about the tacit knowledge about processes, products, and people in the IT services delivery organization that is really in the collective possession of experts, and we have used in-house crowdsourcing as a mechanism to uncover this knowledge as part of the number of business transformation and ongoing operational activities such as compliance management or migration to cloud. And I will give you share with you results from one of our first deployments and discuss how we have scaled this now to over 40,000 in-house employees. And I will wrap up with some lessons learned through our deployments. So a little bit of a background for those who may not be familiar with the enterprise IT transformation and basically what does typically a CIO organization deal with. There is a lot of data and knowledge is in collective possessions of delivery staff. For example, where your application sitting, on which servers, where are these servers, are they test servers, are they production servers, and this knowledge really is in the collective possession of worldwide teams. So you can have a business application owner in one country, server or security owners in different countries, and usually each of them knows only a fraction of this knowledge when you consider also this in the context of the business processes. You might be arguing, well, I can run scripts and detect where is the database running or what is the middleware, but really we are here interested in tacit knowledge. For example, you might have a business process defined and documented, but only the delivery staff know how they have customized it and tweaked it for a particular client, and it's not documented anywhere. And why is this important? So when you consider decisions like migration to cloud or consolidation of data centers, you really need to obtain a snapshot of IT infrastructure in a short amount of time so you can make the right decisions. But this is not so easy because the data is, first of all, very dynamic. Servers get decommissioned every now and then, unplugged, the new applications are developed. So motivated basically with these challenges, we were faced by a very specific problem. Basically, a CA organization came to us and gave us basically a list of 160,000 servers and about 4,500 critical business applications, and asked us, well, tell me what servers are hosting these selected applications, and furthermore, which are the production servers out of this whole list. So you can imagine we do have registries that capture application data and who are the owners, and similarly for servers. There is no unique repository that does a consolidated view of which applications are running on which server, and more importantly, people who know this, they tend to move within and out of organizations. So this knowledge is not always up to date, it's not necessarily always captured. And as I mentioned, it's really in collective possession of multiple communities, application support people, production control, system administrators, and so on. So what we did to tackle this problem, essentially, we used enterprise crowdsourcing, or basically a flavor of in-house crowdsourcing. This is, I'm talking here about expertise-based tasks. It's not microtasking. It wasn't possible for just anybody in the company to participate in this. We have basically used crowdsourcing techniques to seed our crowdsourcing task by a specific community. And using this approach, the community was then able to propagate these knowledge requests through their networks and help us fall down and bring back the knowledge. So just as an overview, how did this process work out? We basically started with and I will show later on the screenshots of the system. It's a custom-built in-house solution. Basically, an admin, it's a self-service where an admin can log on, define their questionnaire, and questionnaire is really a task template in our case. It's a set of questions about a business object, whether it's a client or a server or a business application, and then they will create tasks. Tasks are instances that are assigned to different, let's say for each bunch of hosts, you might assign them to a different system administrator to respond to the questions about a particular task. In the next step, the tool triggers out an email notification with a set of tasks to each user. And what we have learned over the time, so now we basically schedule these emails to go in the morning hours in each time zone so that they appear on the top of the inbox for selected employees so that they don't get buried. And another thing that we do, we always verify emails to see that whether people have moved within the organization, and we have also proactive expert discovery so that we reassign tasks if needed before dispatching. And I just wanted to clarify, so it's not the system does support open call and close call. In this case, we are considering close call crowdsourcing, where we start with a smaller community of experts, and using our tool, we enable them to propagate the tasks to their network. So we may not actually know everybody in the community. So what can people do once they receive the email with a link to the task? They can do a bunch of things. So they can basically claim that they are not the right person. They can bounce back the task to the administrator. They can delegate this task to somebody else in their network. They can subtask, and this is a specific function where they can break down the task into multiple instances and dispatch it in their network. So if I have sent a list of 5 questions, a user might break it down and send 2 questions to one person and another 3 to another. Or they can just simply work on task and complete. We award points both for knowledge-seeking behavior as well as for knowledge contributions. We have found that points were useless when we have basically leaderboards and point earning experience didn't really add to the performance. I will talk about some incentives that did work. Since this was done in the enterprise setting, we have also built in reminders and escalations into tool as the tasks were progressed. And the tool itself provides also REST-based APIs for integration of the results with other systems. So just a quick snapshot of how the tool looks. Basically, this is the dashboard. A user can as I was mentioning earlier, you can delegate all the questions to another user. You can select 2 questions and delegate them to another user. And basically, you can then see the map of contributors and how this network of contributors is generated at real time. So how did this perform? And actually, what I'm presenting here is our very first deployment. And since then, we had many more. Basically, within the first day, so just a bit of a step back, we have sent out, we have engaged 2,300 application owners internally to map out 4,500 applications. Within the first day, we had about 10% of responses. We have reached 50% of responses, so we have mapped out half of our target application base within 4 business days. And then we basically ended up with a long tail distribution. It took another 5 weeks to reach 80% of completion rates. And if you look into the experiment was running for 3 months, there was still like 1% of people who just were not responding to any kind of form of engagement. What did we find out? Basically, what is interesting and valuable to us beyond like quickly completing this mapping, we found new application owners. We understand now how is the knowledge capital distributed within the organization. The referrals, what I mean by referrals, the subtasking capability was used extensively in 25% of cases. And now talking about a little bit about incentives. As I mentioned, we were not able to actually offer any tangible incentives for a number of governance HR reasons. Points did not deem to be effective, but people seemed to be interested to contribute once we gave them the access to this knowledge base. Basically, they were now curious to know which are other applications that are hosted on the same servers in mine, which applications will be affected if a specific server is consolidated, and so on. Now, talking about efficiency, here's a comparison of how this process was run previously and what were the results using crowdsourcing. Basically, before, the approach to discover the business capabilities of IT infrastructure were done in a semi-automated way using huge master spreadsheets with a couple of subject matter experts, consolidating the data, reaching out, even interviewing people, and it would take them in 2 months to map out about 140 applications to 700 servers. Using our approach for this knowledge discovery using principles of crowdsourcing, within the 2 months, basically within the 4 days, we have mapped out 2,300 applications, which kind of, if you project this, is about 30 times process improvement. Now, what are some values? Kind of, you can imagine that this way, first of all, you can reduce the cost through labor avoidance because a lot of the process is now automated. Basically, the tool is centralized and manages this process for you. Certainly, there is still some support overhead involved. Secondly is time to value, so it's really reduced lapse time for data collection. I can give you an example that when following the Japan earthquake, a critical business application had to be migrated from Asia to Australia, and using this approach, we were able to collect the migration parameters in a much faster way. And then there are some additional benefits that are maybe not necessarily very obvious. So for example, there are some side effects of the value of the actual business knowledge that we have discovered. So for example, which servers can be decommissioned, and there is associated cost of hosting them and operating them that you are consequently going to take out. And finally, as I was referring before, now we also know more about our expert communities and how to engage them in other scenarios. So what have we done after this first deployment? We basically have scaled it up. We have considered the entire process of migration to the cloud. So on the right-hand side, you can see all the deployments and how we have engaged through in-house crowdsourcing different enterprise communities, such as network admins, security owners, business process owners, to assist with the knowledge discovery as we migrated a bunch of legacy applications to cloud. There are some other scenarios where we are using the same principles, and it's similarly in the domain of IT services delivery, is basically for compliance management. So to discover the data about infrastructure, user practices, and operations. This was an example of how we have basically used this approach to facilitate the deployment of a new security service offering in a global delivery center. And just kind of flash a bigger flow chart. Basically, this was a very complex process. It was a 2-year effort with multiple global teams involved, and in different steps we have used crowdsourcing to collect the data and facilitate also the decisions about do we need to implement new features for the product and for which client and so on. So as I wrap up, basically some of the lessons learned that I would like to share, and I'll stick with 3 kind of very simple ones from my observation in running these crowdsourcing campaigns. One is cost of participation. Users or crowd members need to understand what investment is required from them, and how you can help in this is really provide a clear goal, put it into the business context of the overarching business activity, communicate time estimates and what is really required from them. Think about incentives, not necessarily what is it, well, at least in the enterprise scenario, not only what is it going to get you to get the response very quickly, but also how can you, if you think back to our chains of crowdsourcing activities, we were hitting the same crowds all over again. So how can we retain them and keep them interested to participate? And finally, usability. This goes back to yesterday's panel about systematic effort. We had some adaptations we made so that the environment is integrated with the employees' dashboards, and also focus on task design and its clarity so that you can better manage the quality. So I'll wrap up here. I know there is everybody's waiting for cocktails, and I'll thank everyone, and I'm happy to answer any questions now or later. I'll be around. Thanks.
That was too true. I thought you were going to say everybody's waiting for Carl, but you went straight.
Car and cocktails. Yeah.
Not waiting for me. Is there any questions? I had a question myself.
We got.
Yeah.
So you said this whole 160,000 took 3 months to complete?
Right, so 4,500 applications were mapped out within 2 months, actually, yeah.
So this is mapping the feedback, correction.
The feedback,
so
right.
Repeat the question.
So the question was how many applications were mapped out in these 2 months. It was 4,500 applications we mapped out, and basically these mappings were then used to create watermarks that were dispatched on servers so that in future you can actually automate this discovery.
Just a follow-up, I mean, I come
Yes.
from a storage kind of background, I've done projects like
Right.
this. So how many decommissioned servers do you remember you found?
There were about 4,000, yeah.
Thank you.
You said that the incentive, the driver at the end of the day was obviously
Right.
the individual's ability to access that knowledge, and it was the
Right.
governance procedures that stopped you trying
Right.
other incentive methods.
Right.
Do you have any view at all in terms of how other incentive methods may have driven different types of results?
So not in terms of the, I believe kind of in the terms of the response time, the monetary incentives are critical if you want something done quickly, but if you want to kind of maintain the quality of the output, you really need to tie it to the actual task of the user or to something that user can better relate to. So that those are kind of some insights.
Great, thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.